The thought that China is a communist country and, let me see if I can find that chart for you first. Wait a second. Yeah, so look at this. This is a top 10% ownership of national income and wealth. So China, both income and wealth, looks like the US.
It's almost like any capitalist nation.
Not almost. It is the most capitalist nation. So people think that China is a communist country and maybe it's called the Communist Party, but actually it's not. It's the Communist Party is the most meritocratic thing in the history of the world. We can come back to that. But also, what is the characteristic of a socialist country? Social expenditure, right? Social welfare. Okay, look at this chart.
Social benefits as a percentage of GDP, only Mexico is lower than China.
Yeah. And China is half the US.
So they're essentially pushing the country into saying that aap kaam karo, GDP badhao. There's enough income opportunities. They're not going to get any benefits as such.
So China ki kahani ye hai ki they are, remember there is a Chinese dream. What is the Chinese dream? For the last, if you think of it from their perspective, for the last 3,000 years in history, other than an 300-year period where they feel they've been, colonized, crushed, demeaned, they have been the biggest GDP on the planet by far, the biggest civilization on the planet. So China has the way the Chinese language works is that you have a very long view of time. So you can talk about the first emperor who built the Great Wall in whatever 100 BC or whatever it is, in the same tense as if the person is there today. So in a sense, when the UK had a deal with China which says we're going to give back Hong Kong in 99 years. The UK was saying, oh, that's such a long time. And China was saying, oh, that's such a short time. So from that perspective, they have a lot of patience, and it is about how we are going to uplift the whole society. There's most of China, dominant religion is atheism, but there is a very strong sense of the Chinese community and how that needs to be uplifted and so on. So there's a lot of individual growth that comes, but there's also some level of collective feeling in that country. So what happens in China is that if you look at all the job generation that's happened in the last 20 years, the number of jobs in the public sector are flat or may even have gone down. The entire job creation has been created in the private sector, mostly by small MSME industries, in the drive to get rich themselves and then uplift their communities and people. And these things that were small MSMEs are today the BYDs of the world. After doing those iterative learning loops over a period of 25 years with unlimited demand coming from China, from the US, and this huge, national focus on getting rich. So in China, they're quite commercial. It's almost like Gujarati Sindhi kind of mindset that we need to make money. And there's also a feeling that I'm responsible for myself. I'm responsible for paying for my family. It's not that they expect the government is going to come and rescue them. So they're hardworking people. And that, I think, accounts for some of this. But so China is very misunderstood in many ways. So let's quickly go over a couple of other things.
So totally understood the focus of the government. Now, is that something that has translated to how startups also have evolved in the country and the workforce mindset, essentially? Like a lot of times we have seen I think in the last 10 years, whenever there was a question mark on, we get a lot of grief on work-life balance. Shantanu has his infamous post of 18-hour workforce, and obviously Mr. Murthy's chided enough for his 70-hour workforce. But China celebrated for the 996 culture, right? 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and 6 days a week. And what essentially you're saying is that culturally the people in the country are very pro fending for themselves, and therefore in some ways they may not be okay with it, but it's not so much of a grief for them to work such work hours, and therefore startups have a distinct advantage to move fast. Or is there something else?
No, I don't think it's that Chinese people intrinsically want to work harder than any other kind of people, or there's anything very different. People are people everywhere, right? And in China also, it's just a different contract. So if you see what the government is doing in China, the government is setting the agenda. So the government basically in the 2011, 2015 to 2020 period, they have these 5-year plans. And these 5-year plans, they have themes. So there was a theme 5-10 years ago, which was talking about the large industries of the future are climate focused, right? So solar cell, batteries, electric cars. And we need to uplift ourselves from low level manufacturing and basically go into high tech, high level manufacturing and R&D in these areas. So even when I was in China 10, 12 years ago, we've had conversations with cities in which our factories were, where they were like, look, you guys are relatively low tech business, and we are going to try and make ourselves more green and whatever. These are the things that you need to do. Or there's some places where they wanted to relocate our factories to other areas because they wanted that area for something else. And these are all commercial discussions that you have with the government. And basically, there are lots of incentives and they'll work in that direction, but they'll also frame what the narrative is. So in the last 5-year thing, they've talked about this thing called common prosperity. So common prosperity is similar to what you have in the US and the West, where because income inequalities are rising, the question is how can we actually grow in a more inclusive fashion? And then the government will set in place rules and systems and incentives more than anything else, and maybe some disincentives sometimes, to try and nudge people in that direction. This is one of the reasons why the Chinese startup ecosystem has kind of tanked in the last 5 or 6 years, because it is no longer sexy to be a billionaire startup founder in China without taking care of all your other stakeholders. So the people are asking, what are you doing for your other stakeholders? So I think that's one of the things to be aware of in China. Second, this wolf warrior culture that they have, it's very niche. It's in very specific areas that are very competitive. But in general, I remember a conversation I had with the mayor of a city. And the mayor tells me this. He says, look, and this is a Communist Party official. He's got 15 years of experience. He's come from the bottom. And when I said it's a meritocracy, remember that in China, the way you get into government is by passing an exam called the Gaokao, which is like the most difficult exam in the world, much more difficult than our IIT or IAS. And you have 10 million students take this exam, and there are 3,000 seats. And the top 3,000 seats are the people who go into the base level of the Communist Party government system. So if somebody is a mayor, this person has come through that and has had 15 years of service, where his KPIs are not about how many bribes he's taken, but his KPIs are, he told me his KPIs, he says, I have KPIs on 3 levels for my city. First, GDP. Second, happiness and satisfaction of people there. And I'm looking to create a city where people can live, work, and play. And if you go to Chinese cities, you can see it. It is live, work, and play. So it is not this, people from who've never been there think it's this dull kind of culture. There'll be people in these gray, clothes, riding cycles. And it's not like that at all. It is intensely vibrant. People have dramatic levels of self-expression and, vibrancy on social media and in real life.